Alright folks, we have drawing to do. Today I'm going to ask you to go outside and draw your house. This is my house right here. I'm sure at some point during this one of my neighbors will come outside and interrupt me. It's already happened a couple times. And also I apologize for the video here because I don't own an actual video camera. This is an action camera that I use for, well, taping to my son's head and pushing him down hills. So, you know, if you can't see what I'm drawing, I will eventually move the camera around so that you can really tell what the hell is going on. So what I want everyone to do is I want everyone to draw their house today, or their apartment building, or whatever they live in, shack, shanty, shed, whatever. But I want you to draw it nice and large scale on the paper. So I'm just going to sketch out my house here a little bit, and we're going to talk about some things that I'm doing while I sketch it. Obviously you need to use a ruler for this, unless you live in some kind of, I don't know, geodesic dome or something like that. Most people are living in some kind of rectangular house, so rulers please. Start off with something really light, like an H pencil, 2H pencil, something like that. Stay really light on your pressure so that it's easy for you to erase any errors, because there will be errors, there always are. So if you're light on your pressure when you're first sketching, it's easy to get rid of that stuff. For me, I'm going to use a B pencil so that you guys can actually see what the hell I'm drawing, and if you still can't, I'll go back and re-outline everything with a little bit more pressure so that you can see more of the lines that I'm drawing. I've moved back a distance from my house so that when I hold out my ruler, 1 inch and everything's going to fit perfectly on my page, you know. So if I hold my ruler out and I'm measuring the height of my house, I see it's 18 inches, so I can move that down to here, and I'll be able to fit nicely on the page without going over or skipping anything to the side. That's really important, to keep it to 1-to-1. Just makes it easier for you, those of us that are shitty at math. That's the best we can have. So you'll have people walking their dogs, no big deal. But again, if for some reason you can't get far enough away from your house where 1 inch will work for you on your paper, you know, 1/2 inch is fine. Just always make sure you're aware of those measurements that you're using. You try not to lose track of that particular setup. Another thing to pay attention to is where your eye line falls on your house. So for me, I'm sitting down, like my eye line is way down here. It's just above the edge of my cardboard or piece of plywood that I'm using as my easel, because I don't have an easel at home. You know, what kind of artist am I? But my eye line is essentially falling right on the top of my trash can right there. So as I begin to draw, I'm just going to make sure I keep a line in there for where my particular eye line is. So right now, a majority of my house is way above my eye line, so I'm not going to put, you know, my trash can area in the middle of my page, because then the rest of the house is going to go off the top of the page. I'm going to keep it really, really low so that I can build up and have the entire top half of my house in frame at all times. Okay? So let's get to work here. It's very cold outside, so I apologize for the sound of my jacket. So first things first, find a nice corner of your building, right? I'm going to work on this one corner right here that goes down the alley in between these two houses, and I'm going to expand off from that particular area. So I've got a lot more house on this side of the paper than on this side, because the alley kind of takes away all that junk. So I'm actually going to keep my initial corner line sort of right here in the middle, just off to the side, just a touch. And again, I haven't even measured the house. That's just going to be the corner of my house as it stands right now. Now, if I hold on my ruler and I start looking at measurements, the first area that I'm holding up this ruler is I'm actually measuring the height of the house. So I'm measuring from the corner where my house meets the pavement all the way up to the very tippy top of the house. Okay? When I do that with my ruler, I hold this thing out, it is exactly 18 inches. So I need to make sure that I go all the way down to the bottom with my line. It's full on 18 inches. There's the top of my house. Here's the bottom of my house. Again, trying to draw dark enough so you guys can see this stuff. I'll go back and darken things as I go, but for you, make sure you stay light so you don't press too hard and get kind of ugly with stuff, okay? So there's my initial measurement, and now I want to go through, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to mark out some of the important areas in here that I need to keep track of. So like windows, doors, the stairs, and the 2 windows on the 2nd floor, and then the 2 windows up on the 3rd floor. So first things first, I'm going to measure up from the base to the gutters where my house turns into that ugly beige siding. That's about 14 inches. So I'm just going to put a little mark right in there so I know that's where the cutoff is. Next thing, I'm going to measure out where those windows fall. Right here they are like 9.5 at the very underside of those windows. And somewhere in there. I'm going to do the window on the 1st floor, which is right about at 3. And again, I'm not doing any crazy lines or anything. I'm just marking out on this corner section where those objects need to be. Now remember when we talked about measuring before and angles and stuff like that, don't tilt your ruler like this. Keep it flat and parallel to your eyes. And don't do anything like this because that's going to mess up your perspective, okay? So try and keep it nice and straight, always in one particular area, and keep that arm locked out super tight, okay? Next thing I want to look at is I want to try and figure out this top angle right here, so as it moves down. So there's a couple ways you can do that. So first of all, I can hold out my ruler. I can say, right, she's slanting off in that direction. Remember, anything above our eye line from that point to point is going to be pulling down. So if I go over here, this is going to be going down. Anything below our eye line is going to be arching up to meet our eyes, okay? So we're going across that way. The other thing I can do is I can measure off from the sort of side of the house here. I'm just going to measure the height. So it's only 16 from over there, so that's about right. So it needs to come down like there. A lot of times when I'm doing architectural stuff, I tend to sketch a lot more without my ruler. I use the ruler for measuring, and then eventually I'll come back and I'll lay the ruler out and say, yes, this is the right place it needs to be, and I'll really hit that line hard so that it makes that nice hard edge, but I'm not ready to do that yet. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the width of the house, the front of the house. Front of the house is 6 3/4. Right there. Since the width of my house doesn't change because I live in a city where all the things are really nice rectangles, I can just do that. And hopefully I'm not tip my chair over. So there's the front fascia of my house, the width of the house. Now the baseline of the house here has to come up quite a bit, because again, my eye line is actually right about here on my paper. It's down low, so anything below that has to start arching up, right? If I hold my ruler out and look at the corner of the house, I'm putting the ruler edge on the corner, I see, look at that, it's got to come up quite a bit, so I need to make sure that's mapped out in the first place. Now I'm going to try and figure out that back, the back of the roof descending in the back right here. I got to figure out that angle, and that one's a big angle. That's a really sharp downward turn. I mean, I know that looks really severe, but it really is that hard of a cut down. And remember, as you move your way down, the gutters, the next sort of parallel line to that, it's going to get sharper. So here, it's it gets flatter and flatter and flatter until we get down to our eye line. At our eye line, everything is pretty much just parallel with the ground. It's just horizontal. Okay? So there's my stuff going back there. Let's see if we can get the gutter section comes in at 14 1/4. So let's just sit here and throw that down. 14 1/4. Measure that side up too. Alright, things are happening. So this section of the house right here, you can see that. That's going to be where that sort of pitched area of my roof is. We'll have our windows right down here. First floor windows going to be there. I think we're pretty close there. So let's work our way down. Next thing up, this is my line for my second floor windows, and those are exactly an inch in. And they go to, oh look, cars driving by, to 2.5 inches. So that's the width of one window. 4. Next window comes in at 4, and it's just beyond 5. House is old as dirt, so a lot of our windows are weird sizes. And in some cases, they're not even the same. Congratulations. If you want to buy a cheap house, move to Baltimore. Let's see. We got 2 windows there, so we can slightly sketch those bad boys in. So if we darken that up so you guys can see it a little bit better. A couple windows right there. Again, if you stay really light, later on you'll be able to come back and easily erase stuff. So there's my 2 windows on the second floor. Let's move down to that window on the first floor, the big guy. That starts at about 1.5 inches and goes to 3.5. Bingo. And how tall are you? 3 and it's 3.5. Pretty tall, big window. This is something you really need to pay attention to, because down here, look at the angle of the lower part of that window. It's almost parallel, right? It's almost a perfect horizontal line. But up here, the angle is much more severe. That's just because my eye line is really close to the sill of that window, so it's starting to level off. But up here, it's much higher. So again, it still needs to tilt downward. Okay. Let's look at the door. Door is about 5 over. So, door there. It's on the same height as this roof wall. And yeah, I'm kind of ignoring the house next door, but you know, so what? 4 1/4. Base of The door is right there. Now I've got these goofy curved bits above everything. There we go. It's starting to look like a house, right? I also have a little basement window that's hidden underneath all of this stuff my wife calls a garden. He's hiding down there. Now I've got a little bit more intricate detail nonsense that needs to happen up here. First of all is that weird pitch for the roof actually needs to be angled off quite a bit. And then it comes back out. Again, all I'm doing here is I'm just measuring stuff to see how far out things are from that main line that I started with. That's my corner. Oops. I should really invest in an easel. That would be smart. 4 3/4 on the other side. So that's going to be my little bump out area of that 3rd floor window. That room is just full of Legos in my house. You see how I changed up how I was holding my pencil while I was drawing there. When I'm doing really fine lines, it's like this. But when I'm just kind of sketching out shape, I turn it over like this. I'm focusing on the bump out, right? That really nice triangle that you see up on the top story up there. This is going to follow the same angle. I can see a little of the roof. Now we're getting somewhere. Now going back down this side, I've got a chimney that's poking out in the side of the house there. Let's see what we're looking at on that side. I gotta flip it over. 1 3/4 to the chimney. Throw that down because it's much longer than the actual house is. And the other half, measure that as well, is there. Whoops. And that's why you want a real easel, people, so that you don't do stupid shit like that. So, up here, you see the top of my ratty old chimney. You see the way the house, the soffit and the vents all pop into this. It comes down. You see a little bit over there as well. Cool. Not too bad. So just so you guys can, so I can make sure that you guys can see what I'm actually drawing over here. I think you can see all that pretty well. Bring the camera up over here so we can actually see what's happening. Alright, so if you look up real close, you can see all my slash marks on there. Those are my measurements on that main support area. You get an idea of all the different lines that I've made. It's still really basic. There's not a lot of super detailed information, but that's the gist of my house right there. If I take, another 45 minutes or so, I can really focus in on the details, especially things like the windows in here, seeing because I can see part of the molding on the window. They're very deep set on our particular house. So now that has three-dimensional depth to it. And it's the same thing up here, there's more molding that needs to happen up on the top of the house. There's all kinds of other little things that I need to adjust. But what I can do is I can show you one that I worked on a little earlier today. Hopefully I can find it quickly. Where are you, window? There it is. So here's one with just a little bit more of the details worked out, including my neighbor's porch that actually juts into the frame of my house. So I included that. I started messing around with the stairs a little bit, just doing a little bit more stuff to make that house look a little bit more realistic. Excuse me. So, just remember a couple of important things, okay? Remember the ruler, right? Try to move back so that you can make sure you're using a 1-to-1 sort of measurement, so that whatever inch you've got on your house equals an inch on your paper, so that it fits on your huge sheet of paper, right? Pencils, stay light at the outset. I don't need you to be super dark on these things. Stay light so that it's easy to erase. If your house is brick, like mine is, dear Lord, don't draw all the bricks. I really don't care about that particular surface. If you want to, you could do what architecture students and architects often do. They draw just a little patchwork area of brick to show, like, hey, this is a little brick right here, right? That's totally fine, but I'm really not concerned with that stuff. If you have a big tree in front of your house, again, think about it like anytime you've ever seen an architectural rendering of a building. You see the trees are just kind of weird sort of scratches on the paper. They're not highly detailed or anything like that. I'm more concerned with you getting the perspective of your house proper, so that it looks like a human could actually interact with that house, rather than it being like a fun house, or like Willy Wonka's Nightmare House or something like that. Okay, so focus on the angles and getting those things correct. If you're working on things like stairs and stuff like that, if you look closely, you can see that I actually initially, and I'll darken it up so you can actually see some of it. Initially for the stairs, I drew just a really crappy cube and then cut away to make the actual stairs present. Again, I'd encourage you to try to find like a corner of the house so you have two different directions to draw in. Don't just draw your house from straight on. I will give you 50% if you draw your house straight on. So don't do that. Challenge yourself. Try to draw it from multiple angles. If you don't live in a house, if you live in a big apartment building or something like that, just go outside and draw your huge apartment building. You might just have to walk a little further away so that you can get that ratio of 1-to-1 a little bit more. And I just sat out on my street in Baltimore, and I didn't get shot or accosted or anything like that, so bonus. But if you don't feel safe sitting outside for an extended period of time, maybe have someone come with you, or wait till it's nice and sunny out and warm so that you won't be messed with. But this is your homework for this week. So once you start drawing, if you have any problems, send me any questions. Always feel free to send me images whenever you want as you're working through these things. I know this online learning stuff is not ideal for studio drawing classes.